Hi there, and welcome to today's screencast, which is actually the very first screencast that I am recording. Apologize in advance if there are any glitches or, little oops moments. This is new for me, and I'm curious to see how it's going to turn out, and I really look forward to your feedback once this is done. All right, so today's tutorial is going to be short. Today's screencast is going to be short, and basically what I want to look at and talk about today is the difference between the MODx Evolution 963 and MODx Evolution 100 Manager backends. And the reason why I have picked to talk about this today is because if you've been following my blog, or if you're, interested in MODx CMS, I have written a series of tutorials, beginner tutorials on how to use MODx to build a website from start to finish. And you can find that by going to my blog, The Coding Pad, and the URL is codingpad at maryspad.com. And once you go there, just click under beginner tutorials, all right? And that opens up to show the series of beginner tutorials that I'm working on and have been working on. And right there is a series of tutorials on how to build a website with MODx. And so far I have 11 installments. These are written tutorials um, with lots of screenshots and a lot of instruction on how to walk through from installing to implementing different features in your website. Okay, so the natural question that comes up and that I've been getting a lot via email from readers of my blog is now that MODx Evolution 100 or 1.0.0 is out, how does that affect the knowledge that is in the tutorials? How does that affect the way you build your website? Is there any difference if you're using 0.9, 0.6.3, which is what I base the tutorials on, or 1.0.0, which is the generally available release right now. And that's basically what motivated me to write this tutorial. To record this tutorial, sorry, force of habit. All right, so let's first go to the MODx website right there. And what this is basically is an open source PHP framework, application framework that's very flexible, very powerful. It's really just a pleasure to work with, and I really enjoy working with it. And if you go to download, you realize that there's several releases of the CMS. The generally available release at the moment is Evolution 1.0.0, which I will call 100 just for ease. And this was released pretty recently. Like I said, this was released while I was in the process of writing my tutorials. If you, you know, scroll down a little more, you'll see that there's Revolution 2.0.0, which is currently in beta. Promises to be very powerful and very, a big revolution. Let's put it that way. Now, I haven't done any tutorials on this yet because I'm sort of waiting for it to go into either release candidate or to actually be released for production sites. But you can be sure that the tutorials will be coming pretty soon. And then if you scroll down, there's the older releases, and this is the one that I'm talking about, 0.9, 0.6.3. And that's what I built the tutorials on. That's what I wrote the tutorials on. Now, I have two installs on my local host. One is, let me just shift this a little to this side. One is built on 963, which is what I wrote the tutorials on. And so this is what you would expect to see if you installed 963. On the other hand, this is the manager backend for 100. And so I'm going to kind of look at a few things here that might throw you off if you're working on the tutorials, through the tutorials, and just kind of do a little comparison there. Now, in the process of writing these tutorials, I've built a little website, and this is what we've been building as we walked through. Still in progress. There's still a lot of work we could do on it. There's still a lot of things we need to add. We need to put some stuff over here and add a few more components. But it's pretty much a fully fledged website, and the tutorials should guide you to getting something like this up and running on your local host or on a hosted server with no problems. So let's look at this backend. All right. If you look at this, the first difference you notice, this is 963. The first difference you notice is that there's a different theme. All right, this is a greenish theme. I believe it's the minimal theme. I could be mistaken, but this is the default theme that you get when you install 963. If you look here, the theme looks completely different. This is the carbon theme. Oops, didn't mean to do that. This is the carbon theme, and that's what you get when you install 100. Now, if we take a quick look at our options here, if you look at our tabs, this is our navigation tabs. The navigation is the exact same place. The one big difference that there is between evolution and 963 and evolution 100 is there's a change in terminology. And the reason that they made this change is to bring evolution 100 more in alignment with revolution. At least that's what I believe I read. And so this really shouldn't throw you off. These two versions of MODx are built on the same code base, okay? They're both evolution code base, so they both have the same underlying framework beneath them. The first difference that I want to point out is that when we were working with 963, we had resources right there. And resources, if you click on manage resources, are our templates, our template variables, our chunks, our snippets, and our plugins. And this is where we went to manage templates and template variables and all that other good stuff, and to create new ones and to edit them and all that. In 100, they're no longer called resources, but instead they're called elements. And if you click on manage elements, you see that we have the exact same kind of tabs there. We have templates, template variables, chunks, and all that. So that's the first difference that you're going to notice. You're going to notice that your resources are now called elements. And the reason that this is important for you to remember and to keep in mind is that in the tutorials, a lot of times I'll tell you, now go to your manager and go to manage resources. Just translate that in your mind now to mean manage elements, because that's what it is if you're working in 100, but it's the exact same thing. All right, the next small change in terminology that I want to point out here is if you go under Site and you look at the submenu, you have New Resource. All right, and what that simply is what we used to call New Document before. So if I come here to the old manager and I say Site, I have New Document. All right, it's the exact same thing. So whereas before you created new documents, now you're creating new resources. Okay. One small other difference that I noticed here, and I think is pretty neat, is when you're creating a new resource or a new document in the old manager, you could finish what you're doing there and then you would click save. You'd first select one of these radio buttons. You'd either say add another if you wanted to create another one immediately after that, or continue editing, or close. And then you'd click save and what you wanted to happen would happen. Here we have the exact same options, except that now we have a little pull-down menu. Add another, continue editing, close. And the default, of course, is close as it was in the old manager. So these are small differences that might trip you up a little when you're thinking of walking through the tutorials. But the tutorials are still useful. The tutorials are still very relevant if you're working with evolution, whether you're working with 963 or 100. You can still use the tutorials. Just remember that what we used to call resources is now called elements. And when we said create a new document, we're now going to say create a new resource, okay? One last thing I want to mention, if you go back to the MODx CMS website where you do your downloads and you scroll down to right there where it says, this is the generally available, blah, blah, all that good stuff. Here, there's an announcement, and if you click on that, it basically gives you the official announcement that was made when Evolution 1.0.0 was released. And if you read here, you'll see the same things I was talking about, the reason why there's a change in terminology, and the differences. Resources are now called elements, documents are called resources, and all that other good stuff. A folder on the site tree, and the site tree is this thing here. This is the site tree. This is the tree where all your documents are going to appear. A folder on that site tree is now called a container, all right? And a folder on the file system is now called a directory. And the file system is basically right here when you go to Elements, Manage Files, all right? And this is your file system, okay? So a folder in here is now called a directory, and you can see that. If we go to the old manager and we go to do the same thing, go to Resources, Manage Files, this was called a folder. We're now calling it directory, okay? And the tree, which is this thing here, which we used to call the tree, is now called the site tree. So small subtle differences, but you don't want them to trip you up and make you feel like, oh my God, this documentation is now defunct, it's no longer useful. It is still useful, and we're going to keep updating it, and I'm going to keep writing tutorials as MODx continues to evolve and as we continue to move further along with this. So that's about all I wanted to cover today. Thank you for hanging in there with me and for tuning into my very first screencast. And I look forward to your feedback, and I look forward to recording more screencasts, talking about MODx and Drupal and other things that I'm interested in. Right? Talk to you next time.